All right, welcome everybody to our specialized quarter class this week. We've got some arena sealed prep. Going to be a very hands-on class today. First of all, let's just get into our agenda today. So not too much, like I said, it's going to be very much a direct class. We got a little short intro discussion. I want to get some thoughts out there, see what people's vibes on the format have been. Maybe just toss around some ideas about sealed, how it differs a little bit, and then we're gonna do some sealed pools. Maybe we get into one, maybe we get into two. I'm gonna see how long it takes for each. Some of them might be harder pools or harder builds than others, and then we'll regroup. We'll talk about it. Anybody who was with us for Neon Dynasty knows how this goes. So yeah, let's just jump in. So I'll ask, how has everybody's sealed experiences been so far? We did, I just put out, a sealed episode. If some people here have had time to listen to that, there's been, I think, not a ton of other sealed content, but I'm sure some people have played some sealed. So what's the vibe been from everybody here? What experiences have you had so far? Actually, I should ask, who has done some sealed so far? Maybe this is just, nobody's had the time to do sealed yet.
I've run a couple pools, but have not actually played any. In fact, I think I even missed the pre-release, actually.
So I've actually done 2 sealed so far. My experience so far has basically been, I've had 2 different decks that I really wasn't sure which one I was supposed to play. One of the seals had very small Atlanta lands, and I felt like I was really constrained by what I could build based on the lands that I opened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big thing, I think. Just this big theme in this format, just your pool is very much defined by what lands you open, right? Kind of opens, if you have a lot of lands, opens you up to, unlocks your pool in a way. And if you don't have that, well, you're going to have kind of a tougher build. That's for sure. I have a question, actually, for the class then. So since we're a smaller group today, 2 things, actually. One, would you like to start on a harder pool and go to a easier pool that maybe we're looking at some more like on the margin details, or would you like to go for maybe a softer pool and then have the second pool be a little bit trickier?
I'm down for starting with a hard one, so we have plenty of time to talk about it.
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a good idea. Okay, cool. And then another thing, so usually I divide the class into a group here. Would you prefer a group of 4, just everybody here, or do you want to do 2 and 2? Any preferences?
I would prefer a group of 4.
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And you know what? Since this is a smaller class, I won't even do my whole, I go away for a while. I'll just chill. So let's just jump into it then. I'm sure, we'll get into some big picture things as we get into it. But one of the things about sealed, when we do these classes talking about drafts, I can kind of have some of these big picture concepts and be like, oh, in your next draft, you can apply this concept. And there's some of that for sealed for sure. But one of the hard things about sealed and just sealed content, and honestly, one of the reasons it doesn't get talked about as much, is each pool is unique. Each pool is very much its own puzzle. And there's no better way to talk about sealed than just talking about pools. So let's just jump in. So I've posted in the Limited Level Ups Discord in the Quarto class channel there 3 pools. Why don't we look at pool number 3 first? I think that's 3 or 1 is the most challenging, but we'll take a look at 3. I'll pull it up, and everybody else can pull it up as well. All right, here's pool number 2. So this is the one we're going to look at first. So this one, let's actually just go from the very beginnings of building here. Any thoughts to how people like to sort their pools?
I like to look at the lands.
Yep.
And then in this format, I'm going to look at the white cards first, probably.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I think I like to go sort by rarity, kind of get a lay of the land here. And this is what I suggested this on the podcast. This is how I've been doing it, because a lot of pools in this format tend to be multicolor piles. Sometimes they're blue-white, sometimes they're green-white. Those are the most common 2-color bases, but sometimes they are just multicolor piles. I just like to go sort by rarity color. It doesn't actually matter. And let's just go color. So like you said, see if their white is good. But I do like to just go pull all the good cards into the pool. Like things like I would pull into the colors. And then we can kind of see what our bases are from there. So backup agent gets in. Can put informant in. Double overseer is pretty nice. You always love to see that. Mage's attendant. Sure, speakeasy. I'm just going to do this. And let's see. If I missed something, please let me know. I'm just skimming over the stuff here quickly. I'll put these in here. Magicians. I'm going to keep the red cards here for now, because generally the red cards stay in the board in sealed, or in this format in particular. That's what I found. Anything that I've left out here that people might consider?
There is a second Riveteer's decoy.
Oh, that's true. Yep, there we go. There we go. And then we see switch sort by color. By the way, also, I should say, when you're sorting your pool on Arena, I would recommend just exporting it to sealeddeck.tech. So much easier than doing it on Arena. Like, you know, actually do this, sort by color, sort by curve. Doesn't matter, you know. It's very much a nightmare on Arena to sort. So this is, I would just import it here. It just makes a world of difference. Okay, so here's like our base of good cards. And the reason I said this is a harder pool is because our good cards are pretty spread out, and figuring out where your base lies and what you're trying to do is tricky. So, anybody have any thoughts on where you want to start here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I look at this pool, and maybe it's a bit of a pitfall. I just see like All-Seeing Arbiter and Vivian, and I'm like, can I build a deck with those two cards?
Well, that's a fantastic place to start. No, honestly, like you want to start with your best cards. Definitely. My baseline here, my default is, let's see if I can have the deck where I just get my best cards in there and see if the base supports that. Okay, so that's blue-green. All right, and let's see. Our lands are Espery, have some red-green in there as well, and a blue-white green land. Worth noting. Oh, there's one more in here. Welcome, Adrian. How's it going? We're just in the middle of building a pool here. It is the pool number 2. If you want to go to the Cordo class and bring up the link yourself, the Cordo class section on the Discord, it's pool number 2. We're just looking at it and we're building together. So yeah, let's take a look here. So let's just move these cards over here for now, the white cards. The thing is, unfortunately, what happens is we get to this point, and I don't even need to move everything over, actually. We can see that there's not enough green and blue cards to make a green and blue base, right? So we're going to try to shove these in somehow. Any other thoughts of how, like, I guess the first question I'm trying to figure out is, what is my main base color that I can have the most of, just have some sort of anchor to, and then build around that. And it's probably going to be white or green here, especially because if we go in the board, like, there are some marginal playables, right? Like, nothing I'm like, okay, I'm excited to play, but if we need to fill out the curve just to be able to play our best cards, we could play stuff like this, right? Same with the white cards, I would say. So that leads me to believe, okay, let's have white or green be our base here. And does anybody have any thoughts on what it might pull them one way or the other between the white and the green?
Early plays in white.
Yeah, totally. Especially because we have double Overseer and Rafine's Informant, one in Rafine's Informant, but that's pretty big too. Just being able to, like, not only is it an early play, but it's an early play that helps us draw into our lands, filter us, right? That's like a huge thing here. So that's what I'd be looking at here. So let's just try to do that. Base white as our early kind of stuff going on here. And let's move these black cards over here. So shall we try base white green and just see what that looks like? That's often a common place that you find yourself in anyways. So we're kind of like this, kind of like this. Stomper goes over here. So base white green, maybe we get the Groundbreaker in. Dapper Shield may potentially. Skycry. Like, now we're getting to, like, okay, I don't love playing these, but let's see what we can make work. Maybe just like for the family. Okay, so that's our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 card base, if that's what we're considering our base. I guess Jenny Faye can also get in there as well. Sorry, she's also a green-white card. And now the next question, if we're considering this our base, is, well, how are we filling this out with other good cards? And any thoughts on that from our good card pile over here, or in our, kind of medium card pile over here? I guess Halo Scarab's actually something I should bring in as well as a consideration.
We could maybe just throw in like a case to join or something. It's like a playable card.
Yeah, sure. Let's go that. Let's go about that. I would actually, I also consider.
Oh wait, sorry, we're looking at white. Sorry, I was looking at my own pool.
No. I think it's fine to do as well. No, I think it's fine to do. So, Buy Your Silence is something I'm like, okay, like, especially because we are lower on, like, green-white tends to be a little bit lower on good interaction. In my green-white pools, I tend to play the first Buy Your Silence if I'm not just loaded on good interaction, and I don't think this pool is particularly loaded on good interaction, so I think that's a card that can come in here. So, I'll say, at this point, I'm looking at my green-white playables, and we're going, all right, the 15 to 23rd card is probably going to be not very good in our green-white pool, right? And that's a problem. That really is. It's I think a common, I don't want to say trap or pitfall really, but kind of a hump to get over when you're building your sealed pools is that you often get to this point, right? Where it's like, okay, well, I've got bombs in, I've got my good white base. I've got a green bomb. I'm pairing my deepest color with my best color. But now what do? I'm going to fill the rest of my sealed deck with like, situational cards and bad cards. I would hope not to, right? Because I think it's in Seal, it's super, super important for every single card to pull its own weight. So then I go to, how can I fit in my other good cards, right? Can I fit in my other good cards somehow? And let's just look at our, our best of the best cards here. That's All-Seeing Arbiter. Run Out of Town's a good interaction spell in a pool with a lot not great interaction. Whack is like fine. If we somehow fit that in. Murder's hard to fit in there. Like as opposed to All-Seeing Arbiter, that's a card that is worth trying to finagle my mana to make that work. Murder not so much, I would say, unless we really need to. So how are we solving this problem of the playable or last 8 playables are not that good? Sometimes the answer is I'm playing not great cards. Sometimes the answer is I'm shoving good cards in there somehow. So which one of those answers do you think we want to go towards right now?
Probably just shoving in good cards.
Yeah, let's try that. That's my honestly. So one of the other things I was talking about this week is if I have the choice between not great mana and not great cards, I generally bias towards the not great mana situation in my sealed pools because it's just so bad to have to play, Fencer or like Initiate. I mean, Fencer wouldn't be terrible, but like, the Initiates, these kind of cards. So let's try to put in the not great cards, right? The not great mana situation. So we've got this, Make Disappear, as a card I'm not going to be able to cast early is probably not on that list there. And then, we've got Halo Scarab we can shove in there. So that's like, we're playing these cards. And then if we're just counting that, we've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. So that's like 22 cards there. And let's just I'm going to put these, these other cards that, I'm going to put the green-white cards here, just as we could play these. And I'm going to put the quote-unquote good cards in our pool in this pile. Maybe we come back to them, right? So we do this. And now we're left with, here's our deck, mana value, and here's our fixing. So the fixing for our Bant cards are a Skybridge Tower and a Broker's Hideout. So it's rough, right? But, that's what we have to work with. We also have a Halo Scarab. We've also got a prize fight. Sorry, this Extract the Truth should not be in there. We've also got a prize fight. And then we kind of go, okay, well, let's try to work the mana situation from there. Sorry, I'm going to move the lands over here. And add some basics. We'll just go our main sources. I'm just going to put a bunch of them in and we can subtract after. Mana value. So if we do like this, so we're 18 lands. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 white sources. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to have the 8th green source in there, ideally, especially because that helps with our Stomper, which is another source for our blue source. So it's kind of something like this. This would be my initial build of the pool, I think. Now, that's my first build. My first go is the most good cards I can shove in there. I would probably also look, is there a way I can shove in more good cards? / are there good cards I feel like I'm missing in the board? Like, what am I missing out on from this pool? I'm missing out on Corpse Appraiser, which is one of the best cards in our pool. I suppose Murder and Whack, which, all these cards are tough to cast. Whack might get in there, but I don't feel like it's worth this constraint on our mana. And then we go, well, let's look at our white and green cards. Is there anything that makes sense in our deck here out of the the cards we didn't want to bring in before? I mean, we could bring in some bad 2-drops. I don't think that's good. We could play a Broken Wings. That's a slight consideration. We could play a Case to Join as another card advantage spell here. But yeah, I've been talking for the past 3-4 minutes. Any thoughts on what we've got here so far?
I wouldn't play any of the green cards. I think they don't add much.
Like the ones up here, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree. My question here now is we're making like cuts where it's like, okay, is Broken Wings better than like, this isn't the best prize fight deck, I would say. We have a Shieldmate, which fights okay. We've got Ginny Fae, which fights okay and also plays well with the prize fight because it can make a token there. So it's like, is Broken Wings better than any of those? Like, you're kind of making these marginal decisions where it's like, is this card better than this? And I don't think so. I think this is probably, if we're bringing this green-white base, is probably what we fall where we end up. Anybody have any other takes on the pool? I think Duncan was saying you're looking at your pool and you did something a little bit different.
I was just messing around with other combinations.
Yep.
I'm not really sure. I wonder if there's a world. So are like blue-black fixing is really good. I wonder if there's a way where we lean into the Grixis cards, but I'm not quite sure.
Let's
how
give
to
it a
make
try. I mean, it's great. Like, this is our initial build, but I always suggest going through a different one. So let's try this. Let's try. Do you have a base you were thinking of?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The problem kind of is like our early game is not good in other colors. Like white
Yep.
has good 2-drops, and then the other 2-drops are not good. So
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things
we
is
could play a bookcase control deck, maybe.
yeah, double bookcase as
Yeah.
our really necessary, like, last resort early game. So let's try. I mean, this is our Bant deck. Like I said before, other good cards in the pool are the Grixis cards. So let's take a look. So let's just clear the deck. Here, I mean, there's definitely some junkers in here, as I can see. Where I don't even need to bring these in. So okay, so let's go sort by mana value here. And we grab them up here, and as I'm just gonna take out the cards I know for sure we're not gonna play. But if anybody wants to has some thoughts on what's going on here, looks good. Also, there's a Rogues Gallery in here. Rogues Gallery is a pretty big pull into black.
That's a whole lot of air.
It is a lot of air. Yeah, this is true. It's the other deck was action packed or more action dense, and here we're playing some filler to get to our good cards, right? Which is another pretty big, kind of tied into what I was saying before about the last 8 cards in your pool or in your deck. People often make the last 8 cards in their sealed deck like bad filler cards. I would like to avoid that, and I think it is, and over the course of 7 games, which is what you're going to play at least, your filler cards are going to catch up to you at some point. You're going to win the games because you draw your awesome cards, but your filler cards are going to catch up to you. So I'd like to have as few of those as possible. Actually, worth noting, Join the Maestros is interesting with Triple Exhibition Magician, right? Because that's in like an actively okay thing to sacrifice, a 2-power thing to sacrifice. So I'm actually going to bring the second one back in. That's actually not off the radar for me. So we've kind of got, unfortunately, like our base looks like black-red, or I don't think our blue is a great base, but of course the problem with that is that All-Seeing Arbiter is the double blue card here. The Magician set that up, and so does the Requisitioner to some extent. But yeah, it still is a little bit of an issue. So let me take out the cards, the blue cards. If we're positioning ourselves as black-red base, the blue cards I wouldn't want to play, for sure. Let's go. Yeah, I think Witness Protection can even come out from that point on. And like more Metamorphosis is fine. Alaki is not amazing in this pool. We don't really have very much casualty. The casualty we have is casualty 2. So I think Lackey can probably go. And Xander's not even that good is the thing, right? It's just like it's a fine card, but it's not like, ooh, I really want to be Grixis. So does anybody prefer this pool over the other? I think my gut says no, but if we bring the lands, it does, we've got about as much fixing here as we do in the other pool. I don't know. The advantage of this pool is we get to play Corpse Appraiser. The advantage of the other pool is I think we get to play a lot better cards. Honestly, if I'm just being straight about it. So I think this would be the pool. This would be the build. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thought is that we can, in the first build pool we built, you can add 3 black sources without reducing the number of any other color sources. But I don't really know if it's worth it if there's one card that you want to throw in there just for that.
That is a great point. Actually, that's the kind of minutia, small details I think is really, really important, because you go, this looks pretty good, and then you want to. You want to fill your deck with as much power as possible, and that's the kind of thing, very smart to say, actually, because like you said, there are free blue sources here. Now they're tapped, but that's not as big of an issue as I would find in, as you might see in draft. So if we bring in the double Waterfront District, what do we get from the black cards? Well, we get Whack, and we get Rogues Gallery. Rogues Gallery is probably a bigger pull in than Whack, I would say. Like, this pool is lacking card advantage a little bit. Like, the Inspiring Overseers are obviously great, but it doesn't grind that well, aside from if we land our rares, right? So you could say we bring in Whack or Gallery, and then what's our worst card here? Probably Groundbreaker. Like, Groundbreaker is not a great card if we're not consistently beating down. It's nice with the Skycrier. It's okay on the flyer, I suppose, but I think that's the worst card in our pool. So what if we do something like this? 18 lands, play Whack, play Rogues Gallery. Let's go sort by mana value. that gives us still enough sources. The problem here is that we want to we want to bank our treasures for the Arbiter often. We're not going to want to be like, okay, I got my treasure, I cast my whack. So maybe it's just Rogue's Gallery at that point, and then our interaction suite is run out of town, buy your silence, prize fight, which is pretty weak, I will say, pretty uninspiring. And this could even come in and we add a swamp. I don't like, maybe we do something like that, right? We go, and then we've got...
If you add a swamp, you can bring the outlook in.
Right,
So
yeah.
now you have...
That's a great point. Then we've got, green and black. Okay, so we go, and that's what you were saying before with the third source. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And Stomper is also fixing black, which is like.
Yep, Stomper
That's
also
true.
fixes black. This is true. I added
How
a-
happy are you to play Metamorphosis as like a slightly off-colored?
Yeah, we can take that
slash
out.
in this
What if
card?
we just take that out?
I'm curious. I'm like, actually,
I don't hate it because often when you are able to cast it, it is 2-for-1-ish, right? Like you have enough situations where it's gonna do good things for you. But I don't feel strongly about playing it. So we're like this, and I took out a card, I guess. What did I do? Because now we have too few cards. Oh, I took this out, and I think I took some other card out. Maybe not. Okay, whatever. There we go. So we're doing this, and then our mana situation is we cut a plains at that point. Then we're a little bit low on white sources at that point because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that helps us fit in the other sources. But I think that's probably okay. Now that means that we're not always going to cast the Informant on 2 and the Overseer on 3, but I think we're going to do it often enough. And I think that's a fine enough concession to make. So it looks like that. I think you could play the other pool or the other build with the no black. But this solves two problems in our pool. One being gives us a little bit more grind and also gives us one more interaction spell. I think I'd probably submit this. That's my final take here. And then the combat trick maybe is a card we could like, as you know, maybe replace that with the Broken Wings. I think that's actually probably reasonable. Just do that. Maybe that's a little bit better because we're not going to be beating down in a way that the combat trick's really effective in this deck, I would say. So yeah, we took, 15, 20 minutes just to look at this pool, and it was a fairly, well, I won't say an obvious build because we deliberated over a while, but from the time we got from finding this green-white base to, like I think there's an equal amount of time between beginning of build and find the green-white base or maybe even there was more less at the beginning, and the second part of it was find that green white base, find the little details, the last 5, 6, 7 cards, figure that out. So that's a lot of what your sealed pools are going to be, right? Or that's where a lot of I guess kind of tripping and falling can be, I think, when you're building your sealed pool, because you find your base and you go, yeah, it looks good enough, right? And then those 5 cards at the end really are going to matter over the course of whatever number of games.
Would you consider playing Girder Goons here over something like maybe Broken Wings?
Girder Goons. So. Yeah, this is another black card, so I think that's my hesitation about that. And I actually don't have a ton of experience with Broken Wings, just like the feel of how I feel it operates in a normal sealed pool. But my thought is, because there's like Broker's Ascendancy, there's the hideaway land, the hideaway enchantments, like a lot of the rares that people are going to be drawn into playing in their pools do get hit by Broken Wings, and there's a decent amount of flyers. I think this is probably a fine enough main deck card. Maybe not one you're like thrilled about, but I think good enough over another card of our tertiary color or quad color or whatever. I would consider if maybe I had a few more sources or free sources. Yeah, and I probably wouldn't replace Broken Wings. I'd probably replace like I don't know, like the Skycrier or something like that. Skycrier is now probably the weakest card in our pool, so I think that's probably what I would consider.
So one question, just from this whole process, how sketchy a mana base would you go to be able to fit in all of the good cards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like you could go down to 7 to typically fit in more power. I guess that would be the rule, right? So like 7 something to get everything in there.
Yeah, 7 is like I wouldn't go to 6 sources, right? And you're talking,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're talking about sources here, by the way, like sources of our main colors here. 6 is a bit low. The more kind of like cantrippy, cycly things I have, the Rafine's Informants, Conniving things that draw cards, the more willing I am to go down a few sources, right? Because I'm just gonna, these count as a I don't know, a 10th of a source or like a 20th of a source or something like, or not a 20th, but 20% of a source. So that kind of pushes me in the direction. I feel like the mana, it makes it a little bit better. That being said, we did configure our mana so we have less white at the beginning here. So maybe we'd want to change something in there. Maybe take out a forest instead. The Stomper gets harder to cast at that point. But yeah, generally, I would be less likely to want to do this if we just had, that our last 8 cards in our pool were just good enough. That makes me not want to do that. I feel like, it's not worth it. But I felt like the last 8 cards in our pool were going to be bad enough that it's worth stretching the mana a little bit. And like you said, you don't want to go to below the 7 source line, but past that, it's okay. All right, let's go to a different pool. So why don't we take a look at, I'm just going to publish this, by the way, just so we have something saved here. Why don't we look at pool number 1 there? Is this the one we just looked at? No, this is not. Yeah, okay. Yeah, pool number 1. And I'll give everybody just a minute to look over the pool. Probably should have done that with the first one too, but take 30 seconds and then we'll start building. I'll move some cards into the board or into the main deck here. All right. Any initial thoughts on this pool?
Our white looks really good.
Yes, I think this is unlike the last pool where we're like, I could see myself being base any 2 colors here. I think we can pretty safely say without looking that our white is going to be our base. We've got Crowbar, we've got Giada, we've got double Informant, we've got double Overseer. That's just really, really good. Backup Agent is like a decent 2, although this is not a pool lacking in 2 drops, so I don't even think that's like all that great, but it's still a fine card here. So let's just say I think we can position ourselves as probably base white as we go into it. And then let's just move some other cards over here. Any thoughts about a secondary color?
It looks like, I don't know. So with white, we have 5 2-drops that are all pretty good. And I'm almost wondering, our other rare, is Facebreaker? I'm almost wondering with your 3 Plasma Jockeys if you could support some kind of aggro-based pool.
Yeah, that's definitely a consideration. Okay, so let's not discount the red cards. That's for sure. We've got that. We've got now we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here with some of the red cards, but oh, that's the wrong card. We also have double Quick Draw Dagger if that's at that point. Also Quick Draw Dagger. I actually mentioned Quick Draw Dagger quickly. Not your traditional good and sealed kind of card, but I have found that if you can come off to if you've got enough 2-drops, good 2-drops in your pool that you want to play them, Quick Draw Dagger, or if you have like Gathering Throng X2 or 3 if you're so lucky, is a pretty good card because often the way the games play out are like you might play it 2, your opponent might play it 2, and then there's this crux of the game that happens on turn 4 or 5 where it's like, okay, here are the most important cards that the game is going to revolve around. We're kind of establishing our board presence. And I found that if you're already going to be ahead on tempo, if you can play a 2 and your opponent can't, just like, and you're going to be able to do that more often than your opponents will be able to because you have more 2s in your deck. The Quick Draw Dagger often is just this like, I don't know, breaks open that crux where it's like, okay, your opponent was planning to have the first creature they play stabilize them, and because they hadn't been playing creatures before, because it's sealed, you tend to have fewer cheap creatures. Your cheap creatures are doing more than they might do in a regular draft game. Dagger does a pretty good job of just keeping them off base, and then it sticks around and then can start to help trade up after if the game doesn't just end from there. So it's like, just like you would say in draft, where if I have a lot of ground-based 2s, Dagger gets good. I think it's even, I wouldn't say better than it is in draft, but it does do a particular thing in sealed, like a meaningfully different thing in sealed, I felt, than it does in draft. Like in draft, you get gotten by the dagger and you're like, okay, that was annoying. But in sealed, it's like, okay, that was annoying, and also I was really hoping my first play would stabilize me, and it just doesn't at that point. So this is a pool I could consider dagger in.
It also plays really nicely with the 2 Raffine's Informants.
Yes, exactly. Yes, the Informants are great. Even, not even too bad on like, these 2 power creatures as well. So totally agree. So I should probably bring those in. So I think, just to narrow it down here, we can be base. Oh, I didn't bring the black cards in. That's important. We can be base, blue as our second color, red as Scott suggested, or maybe even green. I think black is too poor here. I think there's not really a bunch of black cards I want to play. Extract the Truth, by the way, there's two custodians. Maybe that actually counts. In Court Official, I should say that. If you haven't heard my thoughts on Extract the Truth, I should mention it here probably that this is a card that you never play in draft. It's just way too slow, way too do nothingy. But I found that it's like totally passable. Just being able to nab a bomb or get that information of what your opponent has in hand, that helps you play in your sealed games a lot better. But also because there is a lot of, kind of like I was saying about Broken Wings, because there are a lot of the best cards in the format are enchantments, you get to nab that, and that's pretty nice, especially after they resolve. Like, unlike most hand disruption spells, this can't nab something, or hand disruption spells don't nab something if they've already resolved. This one does, especially some of the more important cards in the format. So I found this card to be like a totally fine playable. Okay, so any thoughts on secondary color here, or at least a place to start?
I was thinking blue.
Let's try blue. Why not? We've got a Pickpocket. Got an Out of the Way, which is a reasonable interaction spell. We've got a Rooftop Nuisance. Little Chat is passable in the deck. We've got like a Backup Agent. We've got not a ton of fodder. Disdainful Strokes gets a lot better in sealed. You got Metropolis Angel, which is pretty decent with the double informants and a few other things. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So it's 20 good playables from that point. Happy with all these cards. Do the whole check the board, see if there's anything we like. Case the Joint, I don't hate. We could play that. There's also all these cards that we could splash. So I think that actually makes the most sense to me. So Scott's idea here, let's just look quickly about the red cards. Bum, 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 bum. So we get Involuntary Employment, Double Plasma Jockey, Triple Plasma Jockey, Facebreaker, Ready Rumble. I think that looks worse generally, especially because the Plasma Jockeys don't really do as much. They're not pulling as much weight because we have quite a few evasive creatures. And so when you're attacking in the air, you don't need the Plasma Jockeys as much. I wouldn't hate splashing the Facebreaker for mana allows it. So I think that blue-white looks a little bit better than that. Maybe green-white. So green-white gives us Jewel Thief, Briefcase, Luxurious Libation. So that's not a better base. So I think we can safely say blue-white is our best base at this point. And we do the same thing we did in the last draft or in the last sealed pool where it's like, all right, how do we fill out? Number one, let's see if we have any filler stuff in here. Number two, how do we fill out the rest of the deck here? So I think the most fillery stuff is like Buy Your Silence. Oh, the Observer. I'm actually just gonna put it in the board because I would prefer not to run the Observer here. But yeah, second Buy Your Silence is even more fillery than the first one. Case the Joint. Shieldmates is whatever. Little Chat's kind of fillerish, and the rest looks good. So we've got like 3 spell slots to fill, not even counting the cards here. Like this amounts to 20 cards, and then 5 fillerish cards that we might be able to improve. So any thoughts on where we might go from there?
So I imagine that Shattered Seraph gets better in sealed.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something like would you consider running one or both of them? It's awkward that we don't have any like free black fixing fixes itself, but
yeah, it's also awkward that it doesn't like help us play. I mean, it helps us play like Tainted Indulgence and Syndicate Infiltrator, but those aren't exactly things we're like stoked about getting in our deck. But yeah, so certainly this is a card that I'm much happier to play and see. All of these family fixers, Mass Bandits, Seraph, that kind of stuff. I'm pretty happy to play. Mass Bandits is the worst one I think of the bunch, but as far as comparing them to how good they are in draft, totally fine cards, especially if they fix you. So that's an option. I'm just gonna move over here. I was bringing the Quick Draw Dagger in because, like I was saying, I think it can be fine. There's Infiltrator, Indulgence. I'm just like moving in anything I could possibly consider playing. Our fixing is Bance and Jund, which these lands don't particularly help us. The Bant ones maybe. Warm Welcome, yeah, Briefcase. Like these don't make too much sense. There's Jewel Thief. And there's Facebreaker as a actively good card, and then some black cards over here. So this one of the challenges of this pool is like really scraping to like find, hey, what what are we filling our deck out with? And especially because we have less fixing than we did in the last pool, we can't even just naturally play our best cards here. I mean, there's like Brazen Upstart, which that's a double splash. This is base breaker. We don't really have any mana that helps us there. We'd be playing mountains or relying on treasure. So I don't know, where do we go from here? I think one of the answers is we're probably playing those fillery cards that we were considering maybe not playing in our blue white. I think those have to be in our base. But past that, and I'm sorry, I'm just gonna move this so it's a little more clear. Past that, what do? We could play the Seraphs. We could play Libation, Prize Fight, because we do have those brokers hideouts, right? Jewel Thief could even get in there. It's not the best on the splash, but it's a good card in our deck. It does maybe help enable some of the other stuff too.
I think Libation's pretty free splash.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's go Libation in. Maybe we just say, because so one of the things about this pool too is you always want to look at when you're bringing in cards from a different color, roles you need to fill, right? Ideally, if I'm splashing a card of a different color that isn't my main colors, I'm filling some sort of role that my deck doesn't naturally have. And I think what this deck is a little bit lacking in is just decent top end, because we've got really good early game. But I wouldn't hate the Seraphs here just as, okay, big 4/4 flyer plays well with our good early game here. So maybe we're doing something like that, and that is 23 here. Yeah, if we just play that. So if we just again, I'm gonna do the same thing. We're at kind of the stage of the build where we do this, and we just kind of maybe we consider these, but maybe don't play them. Quick Draw Dagger, I'll actually leave in because I think there's a world where we say, hey, we can probably play 2 of those.
Maybe the second Biosilence.
Yeah, this is interesting. So one of the things I definitely want in my sealed deck is ways to answer problematic cards. Like in my draft deck, I'm a little bit less interested or a little bit less worried about needing answers to problematic cards, because the game, I can accommodate, or I can make up for the fact they don't have answers with just being a good tempo shell. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna kill you before the bombs matter, or at least put you in a position where the bombs aren't as impactful. But that happens a little bit less often in sealed, and sometimes you can ask, maybe my deck is set up to actually still do that and still say I don't care about needing to answer things. Like I think this pool is on the verge of that, right? I wouldn't be resistant to cutting one here, especially because we have Make Disappear, Disdainful Stroke as like 2 answers to like some problematic stuff too. So yeah, let's cut one of those. Let's see if that looks a little bit better. Wouldn't hate playing the second one either if we needed to though. And maybe we just cut the second Dagger. That could be something. The Halo Scare maybe doesn't do that much, right? It's just like kind of
It
what
fixes black and green, I guess.
it fixes black and green. Yeah, this is true. It's kind of dorky, but
I was gonna suggest maybe we cut a little chat, but I don't know.
And
It makes Halo Scare better.
that's true. I kind of like a little chat, because like it helps you find your best cards, and it also, like you kind of have time to. So one of the dreams with these instant speed casualty cards is you blow your opponent out, where you're just like, okay, like they go for a removal spell, or they just cast like a hold for ransom and you sacrifice it, right? And you often can't in draft be like, all right, I've got this little chat, I hold this up for a little while. In sealed, you can do that a little bit more, so you get a little bit more equity there. So even though we don't have a ton of great stuff to sacrifice, I don't mind it in this deck. But I could see it. I'm gonna put it here as, yeah, this is a reasonable thing to cut. I'm gonna put just all the cards that we could see cutting. Backup Agent, I could even see being the cut, although it plays pretty well with Metropolis Agent, so maybe not that. Thoughts on these 3 cards as one of them being the last cut?
Well, actually, in defense of a little chat, we have a bunch of instant speed stuff that kind of plays well with it.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Maybe I take it back.
We've also got Backup Agent and Citizen's Crowbar, which aren't like the worst things to sacrifice. It's kind of like little foddery things. That's kind of funny too. I just realized this. Seraph kind of gets a bump from Jada. An ever so slight bump,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's kind of cute.
Quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah, 1 cheaper, and also it's an angel. It'll get a counter. It'll be a 5/5
Yeah,
flyer.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a little something. Yeah, so I think chat can come back in, and maybe we just do this, and then the mana looks a little bit better.
So one question.
Of course.
I mean, it's not really on the consideration for the cut, but does Rooftop Nuisance get worse in sealed?
Yes, for sure. Certainly, when you can't leverage the tempos easily. So I like it. I like it as just a divination if you've got okay things to sacrifice. In draft, you care more about the tapping stuff down mode of it, or the part of the card. I think in sealed, you like it just as the card draw. Sacrifice something
Gotcha.
that, like I was saying with a little chat, sacrifice something that has gotten hit by a maybe a witness protection or a hold for ransom, something like that. So it's still a fine card for that purpose, I would say, or just a card that's kind of like outstayed its welcome. That's the thing, like you can sack your just like your Fiend's Informant maybe at some point, just like okay, this is like isn't doing that much, or your token from Libation.
Makes sense.
Yep. All right, last thought on this build before we go to our last one.
How would you rate this deck compared to the last build that or last deck that we did?
I think worse. So it's doesn't have the power that this one has, right? The top end power for sure. It's got a similar early game. I think this one's early game is a little bit better. But this one also just has like, I mean, they both have double overseer, so we were kind of tied there. But it has a little bit better interaction, I would say. This deck's interaction gets things off the board for good, whereas this deck's interaction, is a double bounce and like tap down, which is a little bit worse than sealed because you care a little bit more about actually answering something rather than getting it off the board for a turn or two. Not by I don't think this deck's interaction is all that much worse because we still have a buyer silence, which is fine. But if I'm just gonna do a quick stats bar on both, I think the interaction here is a little bit worse. They're close because this deck is less clunky, I would say. The previous deck is a little bit more clunky and just the mana situation is a little bit trickier. It's a little bit more grindy. Where this one's just a little bit cleaner. But I think the Vivian plus the All-Seeing Arbiter do put this deck just a little bit worse than our first one.
Is there a Wraith Dead in black in this pool?
Good question. I don't think so. I think our black was pretty junky. Yeah, there's none of that. No dig up the body, no rogues gallery, anything like that. Yeah, this is the one. So it's number 3 on the Quarter Class channel there. So the kind of what we've been doing for the last ones was finding our base and then figuring out what are the last few cards that we're going to actually include in the deck, right? That's just like figuring out what the best cards are. Now this one is not going to be that tricky because I think that double Broker's Ascendancy very, very heavily pulls me towards Bant of some sort. But I will say as well, we've got some cards that are pulling us in other directions, right? We've got like an Ob here, which is very out of the way of what this is doing, but also some like Esprit cards. So there's some room for it not just to be straight, we're just Bant for sure. So I'm just gonna do the same thing, just bring in the cards that I think I am fine with playing. All right, so that's about it. I think this is about the pool of cards we're working at, give or take a few cards on the board. Initial thoughts. Let's just maybe sort by color here too. Might help be helpful.
Well, white's probably going to be our base color because we're probably going to want to be either green, white, or blue, white.
Yeah, where have I heard that before?
Yeah,
like, yeah. A lot of your pools are going to be base white. And any thoughts on the secondary color there?
So if we go green, white, we get to play the Civil Servant, which is nice.
Galagreeters is a pretty big one.
Right.
Yeah, as our base there.
So that like short ups our early game. Short is up our early game. Blue white has some good interaction.
Yeah.
I think I would start with green white and then like maybe splash some of the blue interaction.
Yeah, I think so too. So one of the things that I was saying, it's not super obvious what our secondary color is because blue has the decent interaction, especially Make with the Fishes, or Sleep with the Fishes, which is double blue. Just makes a little bit of tension there. But I think that the Civil Servant being a premium 2, Galagreeters being a premium 2, that helps whatever we want to bring in there makes a little more sense there. So I think this is probably what we're looking at as our decent base here. And then we're not playing these, so I can safely put these in. There's a question if we're playing Groundbreaker. I don't think it's clear that just yet. There's a question of if we maybe want to play Revelers, another citizen creature, also like plays well with the Broker's Ascendancy as multiple, making multiple bodies. There's the Ginny Fae, which we're probably going to play in there. We've got the Parcel as fixing. We've got double Skybridge Tower and Botanical Plaza as fixing. So I think, pretty safe to say blue-white base here. And then what are the blue cards might we want to bring in? So we've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to put this here for now, just because, assuming we're going to play it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 cards here. 18 green-white cards, and then the Broker's Ascendancy. So as we're adding blue cards, we do have to be mindful that we've already got 2 blue cards in here, just for our, our purposes. And actually, I should bring the dagger in as well. Just looking in the board here if there's anything else. Let's bring this Civics Gardener in just in case. Double for the family. I forgot to bring that in too. We can probably just assume we're playing at least one for the family.
I like the sample stroke.
Yeah, I like this Disable Choke a lot too, especially because this is a deck that we're going to be like getting on board super early. We're going to have a lot of 2s, a lot of 3s, so we can easily hold up Stroke on 4. Play a 2, hold up the Stroke, or in 5 or something like that, right? So I think that is one of the, much happier about playing that than I would say Make Disappear. I think our cards are good enough. So here's an example. Scott was asking earlier, when do you stretch your mana base? This is an example of a pool. Our decks our cards are good enough that, like, Sleep with the Fishes is, why do I keep calling Make with the Fishes? Sleep with the Fishes is one of our better cards in our pool, but I don't think we need to make this stretch here, right? It's just not necessary. Even though we have reasonable mana, we still have to play too many islands, I would say. So I think that's out. Echo Inspector is a consideration. This is a consideration. Metamorph is a consideration. I guess Snoop can get out there. Second Stroke is also a consideration. And then we've got like these cards that are, would be easy-ish to cast, but maybe aren't the best. For the family, number 2 is also a consideration. And then these colorless cards if we feel like we need them. So
I have really liked the Paragon and Sealed.
Sorry, say again?
I have really liked the Paragon.
Yeah, me too. I think this is one of my bigger order performers. And if we're just playing blue mana in our deck, I think it's totally fine. The games do come down to, sometimes the board gets a little bit stalled out, and just a nice evasive creature that grows is pretty good. So, yeah, I like that. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So really, we don't need to, like, if we could even just be clean with the mana, just bring in For the Family number 2, and just say, I'm just going to put these again, as I tend to do. The cards, we've kind of got our build here, and we do this kind of thing. And we are low-ish on creatures at that point. We're taking out a lot of creatures from that point. Although, then again, well, Warm Welcome counts as a creature. Libation sort of counts as a creature. Parcel, I think we don't need to play. I think like we can get away with the lands we have going on here. Play an island. We can cut that. Then let's just bring these back in maybe. So we've got 24 spells here. And let's just, 24 spells here. A little bit low on the creatures, like I was saying. Maybe the Dagger can go. Maybe the Spire Silence can go. Because this is a pretty good beatdown deck, honestly. Like, I don't feel like... So in the previous pools, I felt like, I really want to play the Buyer Silence because I think we're going to go a little bit longer. I think the Buyer Silence, maybe we don't need it as much, especially because we have Hold for Ransom, Knockout Blow. Like, we've kind of got some answers. So I think that can probably be a cut. And then the question is there a way we fit in another creature somehow? Like, we've got 13 virtual creatures here. But I would like to play one more. Maybe 2 more if we can help it. I think the problem is, like, so we would play Echo Inspector. That's a good creature. But then the next best thing is, like, Celebrity Fencer, or we could, like, Spring for Quasar. I don't love that. Spring for Shattered Seraph. I don't love that either so much. I don't know if there's a clean way to fix that problem other than playing, like, Civic Gardener, which I would kind of prefer not to. So I think with Gala Greeters, Prize Fight, double blue land, I think it's probably safe enough to play this Echo Inspector. I'm not 100% on that decision, but I think I would probably jam it in as another quality creature. All right, and then I'm going to put these, I'm going to just bring these in just quickly as, we're still maybe considering them. Oh, actually, no, I don't hate the Revelers as well. That's another consideration. Maybe that's better than something else. Okay, so this is our base here. Any objections, thoughts, anything you'd maybe add over what we have as our 23?
Do we really have to splash for an Echo Inspector? Is it that good, or as far as like, is it really fulfilling the role?
I think the role
we don't already have.
Yeah, I think the role it serves is just like we have so many cards that care about creatures. Double For the Family, a Prize Fight, Libation. Maybe we don't need to play the Shovel. Maybe Shovel can actually get the cut. So that's one less liability. But I think enough of our cards, Broker's Ascendancy, really appreciate having another, like, our creature count being in the 15 range rather than like the 13 range. Also, Warm Welcome wants actual creature, like, type line creature in there, so it whiffs a little bit less often. But it's not even the whiff potential, it's the fact that now you have a little more selection rather than seeing a bunch of lands and spells. So it does fit that kind of role, but I could see it not being worth it. That's certainly a point of contention. And again, like I mentioned, maybe, we have a few less creatures than, or a few more creatures than it maybe looks like, because these two are also creatures for the purpose of cards that need creatures. So maybe we do just cut the Echo Inspector, and that's just a clean build. Anybody have any strong feelings for or against the Echo Inspector?
So how many blue sources are we playing? We have the 2 free
Yeah.
ones and just 1 island?
So we'd have, one island most likely. The island doesn't even do anything as opposed from just being this is a source. It's not we have a fetch, but we could do that. And then we've also got Galagreators and Prize Fight as blue sources. So it's pretty clean. It's a little bit, we've got this and this, and maybe we basically be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sources for the double ascendancy, and then the Echo Inspector would be pushing it a little bit on just the raw math of how well that works out. Especially because this deck actually, as I'm talking about it, I'm leaning a little bit away from splashing it, because unlike the other 2 decks, this deck has much less velocity. It's just not seeing its cards at an accelerated rate, right? So I think we probably would just be at the mercy of our deck. So I think just making things a little cleaner there might make sense.
So how much do you like the Paragon with the fact that we've trimmed a lot of the blue now and aren't being able to put counters?
So I think we're gonna be able to put the counters reasonable amount. We only need 1 source to make it able to put the counter. Maybe on 6 mana we can't double put the counters on. I still think it's fine enough, and especially I was saying, we don't want to cut too many more creatures. So I think it has gotten a little bit worse, but not by a ton.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I think that's the build. So we got our 3 builds here. For anybody watching along on the YouTube or afterwards, I'll post the links to these sealed decks to see if you want to mess around with it. Let's just wrap up though. So let's go back over here.
I had a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we didn't need to make any more cuts, but I noticed we have the dagger and For the Family in there. In this kind of deck, are we possibly preferring For the Family? I think in the pre-format episode or class, we were talking up the dagger, but I feel like in cases where I want a combat trick, sometimes then you're in those colors, I prefer For the Family versus the dagger. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on that if you had to make that choice?
Yeah, we also are unlike that other deck where we had a lot of things that we had a lot of 3 power 2 drops. I mean, you've got 2 of them, which isn't too bad, but I don't feel like. Yeah, so I mean, to answer a little more directly, I guess we've already got 3 pump spells, so this is probably a little less necessary, right? So maybe even we take this out for something else. This is probably our worst card at this point, right?
I was wondering if we might want to bring in a Broken Wings, depending on how the format shapes up.
Yeah, let's see. So let's go. Let's find it again. Yeah, maybe that just looks a little bit better. Just it fills a niche a little bit better of a niche. I think Dagger is the worst version of the effect we have. So yeah, I actually like that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, sweet.
How would you compare this deck to the other 2?
Yeah, good question. So we do have double Broker's Ascendancy, which is really, really nice. It's on top end power, it's about similar to this one. I think that it's got Interaction Suite is not as good, but it does make up for that in the fact that it can do that tempo thing. You're just beat your opponent before it matters a little bit quicker than those other decks, I think. Maybe at a similar rate to the blue-white one. So probably on the same level as the first one, as similar power level, if not maybe a little bit less, and also has is a bit cleaner, right? The other deck is going to have some clunkiness, is going to have a bit of awkwardness in making sure it hits, sequencing the lands right. You're going to have to make some tough decisions in there. Here, you're going to have to make a lot fewer tough decisions, and you're also going to get a lot of wins just by curving out, I think. So, yeah, I think this is maybe the best one, potentially, if we add up great top-end cards and also great just cleanness factor, right? Not a lot of clunk in there.
I was going to say the downside is it has 0 Aspiring Overseers.
Yeah, 0 Inspiring Overseers. Yeah,
Yeah.
You know what? That is a great point. Actually, now you pointed that out. I forgot about that. Maybe I will revise my answer. It's close though. So I think clearly this was the worst one, and these 2 are somewhere in there as in the top. But yeah, I think, we can wrap up. As always, I do want to give a quick shout out to Patrick. Shout out to Patrick. Patrick helps me plan these classes, helping me come up with activities. Although this one was more of a, the first one we did for the Neo Dynasty, very much similar to that. But, he had some input in, when and where we did this. So thank you, Patrick. The education consultant who helps me with all these classes. He is great. If you want to contact him for any of your education consulting needs, or if you know anybody that needs education consulting needs, I'll post his email in the description for you to contact him. And yeah, let's just do a little wrap up here. Any last thoughts here? Any last questions before we I say good luck to you tomorrow?
We're all gonna walk away with 2K.
Exactly. Yeah. Just good vibes. Good vibes. All right. Well, I think we'll just pack up from there. Everybody, thanks for hanging out on this very, very hands-on class, and we'll see you next time. I think we're gonna have a class next week. I'll let you know very soon, as always. And if not, certainly the week after, we're gonna get probably more into some more, a little bit shifted away from Streets content. It's gonna probably touch on street stuff as well, but maybe a little bit more big picture stuff for the next class. We'll see how things, how I feel about things this week. All right, have a good afternoon or evening, everybody. Again, good luck to everybody out there, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
I do have one quick question. One of the things that you mentioned on the last episode was seal being something like a muscle that you might want to flex a little more often than just every time there's an arena open or pre-release or whatever. What suggestions do you have for that? Just run some draft sim and maybe build those and then do a custom match in arena, because I just don't really enjoy queuing up and playing those events because they're not very cost effective, I guess. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, they're not very cost effective, but also I find it's often is kind of like a very, very mixed bag of who you face. Like there's sometimes
that's also true.
You face like the 70 card deck and it's just like, all right, well, I'm just kind of sitting here just like playing against somebody who's clearly newer to the game, which is all fine, but if you're queuing up trying to get better, it's not the best the best place to do that. So I would say there's a few things you can do. One, if you can find a partner to do it with, that would be great, fantastic. Just kind of make sealed pools yourself. Go to DraftSim. DraftSim has, that's where I got all these pools from DraftSim today. So you can just go, they have a sealed pool generator, or there's a lot of other sealed pool generators. A big part of sealed is that puzzle of just like what we did today, taking 20 minutes, really working through it, flexing, the really intimate details that we got to at the end. That's the kind of stuff that I think is the biggest muscle you can flex, because that's the kind of stuff that it's hard for any, like myself or anybody, to say, oh, when you look at your sealed pool, this is what you're going to do for the last 4 cards. Like that's the kind of stuff you kind of have to have the experience of doing. So yeah, they'll just, you don't even need to play them out, honestly. Like playing them out is great, but the actual build is really, really fantastic. And of course, if you can play them out with somebody, that's great. If you have the time and the means to just do like a friendly meet up with a friend, 6 nightly sealed, just doing like, hey, let's like meet up on a Friday night, get drinks and do a 6-person just 2-person sealed. Like I've done that before. That's pretty good practice. Also, if you really like my absolute best, if you had the time and the commitment, you could go to put aside a Friday night or a Thursday night. Go to the MTGO sealed leagues. I know that's asking a lot to traverse into MTGO, but that's going to be the absolute best competition to face, right? Like, and it's going to be timed, 20 minutes for the build. You're going to have like the actual, as if you were going to like a competitive event, and you're going to have that great feedback of playing against very good players too. So that's kind of the range. You can go very casual, just like, play with your friends. That works. And then all you could do on Arena, or you could really, take the next step and try MTGO.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, of course. All right, everybody, goodbye. Have a good afternoon. Have a good evening. And thank you so much for coming to class again. All right, see you around.
Bye. Have a good night. Good luck.
Yeah.